we're working really hard, but we're not focusing on culture. Then we focus on culture, but we're not working very smart. And now we need to, but if I'm going to sum it up, it's sort of the evolution of alignment, decisions, and accountability. So getting everybody fully aligned around the work they can do to improve what's most important and agree on what is most important, and then make the best decisions to do the right work at the right time in the right order to accelerate the improvement in what's most important, and then driving this culture of accountability where everybody does what they say they will do a higher and higher percentage of the time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Scale Up Method, where we teach you how to reach the next level in business, build your dream team, and scale beyond 8 figures. Too many business owners are stuck trying to do everything themselves, and their businesses are suffering as a result, and I don't want you to be one of those people. I am Allison Maslan, and my company, Pinnacle Global Network, has helped thousands of business owners scale their companies using my framework, the Scale Up Method. All business owners face similar challenges when it comes to growth, and on this podcast, we're delivering the tactics you need to finally reach that next level in your business, build your dream team, and scale beyond 8 figures. And talking about scaling beyond 8 figures, I'm excited to bring our guest on today. Today, I'm talking to Lee Benson. He is the CEO and founder of Able Aerospace and Execute to Win, and author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Your Most Important Number. Lee grew his first company, Able Aerospace, from 3 to 500 employees before selling the company for 9 figures to Textron Aviation. Following this, he committed to helping other leaders achieve similar results as his next venture. He founded Execute to Win, where his main focus is to help leaders develop an intentional high-performance culture that connects to financial performance, which is so important. And so many business owners don't look at the numbers, the important numbers. So the common challenge for businesses and clients he works with is accelerating the rate at which they create value. And this is true for accelerating growth in cash flow and profit, as well as impact for nonprofits. The solution he's developed is a business operating methodology that works for all teams, even when a leader is not in the room. He calls this the MIND methodology, most important number and drivers methodology. The MIND methodology designs every action to improve a team's most important number. So today's operating system is used by businesses all over the world. So I cannot wait to learn more. So Lee, welcome to the Scale It Method.
Allison, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So your story is absolutely fascinating. 3 to 500 employees. That's a lot of growth. And I know it was over a period of time, but you went through many phases to get to that 500 and then ultimately to the exit. First of all, I want to dive into those phases, but what inspired you to jump into the business world in the first place?
You know, when I graduated high school, I had this notion that I want to start at least 5 things that any one of them would maintain my lifestyle in retirement. And my first business was actually a rock and roll band. You know, so back in the 1980s, we would play over 300 nights a year some of those years. It's how I made the majority of my money. Back then, I had a sound crew, light crew, rhythm section. We changed out from time to time. It was pretty cool. I just liked that concept of business. And I could spend 3 hours talking about this next piece. I'll just say it in less than a minute. I started my value creation stressing journey really early, like trading my best efforts for the accumulated best efforts of neighbors by the time I'm 6, 7 years old, pulling weeds, mowing lawns, shoveling snow. It's like, well, that's really cool. I can go out in the real world. This isn't my family. They see enough value in what I'm doing to pay me. And then I just kept taking incremental steps and building on that value creation. So when it got to founding, basically Able Engineering, Able Aerospace, Able Systems and Technology, I'm actually on my 7th company now. I started from scratch. I just kept building on that value creation process. And so it was just a natural evolution going from 3 in the one business and thinking value creation, next step, continually improving what's most important to get to, a 9-figure exit 500 employees. And interesting journey, learned a lot. And And I would say it was way harder to run the company with 50 employees than when I got to 500.
Really? Really? Because we're at 50 right now. So this is a good conversation to have. In fact, that's so funny that you say that. So can you take us a little bit through for those that are listening today, the phases of growth where you saw the biggest shifts, the culture must have changed, the way you run the company, at 10 to 50 to 100 to 500, can you just talk a little bit about those benchmarks?
Yeah, when starting out, it feels like a succession of Patrick Lencioni novels, and we're working really hard, but we're not focusing on culture. Then we focus on culture, but we're not working very smart, and now we need to, get strategy right. But if I'm going to sum it up, it's sort of the evolution of alignment, decisions, and accountability. So getting everybody fully aligned around the work they can do to improve what's most important and agree on what is most important, and then make the best decisions to do the right work at the right time in the right order to accelerate the improvement in what's most important. And then driving this culture of accountability where everybody does what they say they will do a higher and higher percentage of the time. And that really kind of goes to organizational trust. And of course, culture is a pretty big deal. And you mentioned culture. Early on, it wasn't very intentional. Every company has a culture. Most of them are unintentional. And in my opinion, it's an organization of any size, even tens of thousands or more employees. So once we started making that very intentional and connecting culture to financial results, things got better. And I would say so there's all this learning, and one of the business maxims out there that folks will talk about, the founder that got you here can't get you there. And I just never believed in business maxims. You can have it all. You can be the lowest cost producer and the most profitable if you just really focus on it. So that was my mindset as I was growing through it. My mindset was the single biggest limiting factor in my business is the person at the top. That was me. If I don't think it, allow it to happen, agree to it, constantly develop myself personally and professionally. It will significantly limit even more, what our potential is. So as I'm going through that, we got to about 150 employees, and it's like, wow, this is 70, 80 hours a week. It never felt like work. I just loved it, absolutely loved it. But I would look out and we had a number of leaders, and some of them always seemed to get really good results and do what they say they would, and others wouldn't. So what was different? And I just simply categorize the types of things leaders do. For example, foundational readiness. Do they have everything in place to be able to get the results and get better today and get better results in the future? Or how do they show up as a leader? What kind of environment do they create, et cetera? So we're going through all this stuff, and it's like, wow, this is really interesting. We have these categories, we break it down into elements, and I just simply rank the leaders red, yellow, or green in each of these elements within the categories. Green is you're definitely at or above what you said you would do. Yellow, you're sort of at risk there, and red is you're consistently behind. And I posted it for everybody in the company to see. And it was wild. We were stuck at around, 7.5 to 8.5 million in sales for 3 years. And once I did that and got that piece of it more right, we just started accelerating. In fact, it was 2 years later, we're at 20 million and we're just climbing, just chunk, going up. And then my job got significantly easier because I'm not running around constantly holding it together, trying to stump speech my way into motivating everybody. Now I'm water skiing behind the team, and this is really cool. And so that sort of evolved into, by the time we had 500 employees, 15, 20 hours a week was all it really took for me to run the business. And I spent the rest of the time, I'll just travel the world, get bigger contracts. I could do really bigger things for the big business and take even bigger steps. And then that led to this exit that I think was fantastic for us, fantastic for the buyer, fantastic for the employees, mostly, if not almost entirely, because of the way we connected culture to financial results and kept everybody really focused on improving what's most important. And again, back to alignment, decisions, and accountability. How are we continually improving those things to accelerate the overall value that we create as an organization?
Wow, I love that. So you kind of called people to the table, but you also empowered them at the same time. Did you, when you say the red, yellow, green, I'm just curious, you said for everybody to see. Do you mean for the leadership positions in the company? And I'm thinking,
It was for all the leaders and every employee to see. It went up on a board so everybody could see it in the entire
of their
facility.
leader, or it was just for the leaders.
No,
Or the leaders were the ones that were up on the board for everybody to see.
everyone in the company got to see how every leader ranked in every single area. Wow. Now, if you have a culture of fear and not wanting to look dumb or command and control and lots of silos, to just instantly do this, it could destroy the business. I mean, you could take over half the leaders. But we built a culture where every employee, we took 16% of our pre-tax net profit, paid it to everybody as a bonus proportionate to their income. So we would do the best we could to make sure everybody's paid fairly relative to each other. You can never get it perfect, but we really went after it to get it right. So everybody, yeah, okay, I see what they're doing. I'm paid this amount. That person's paid more. She's making even more. But that's the role they have. Those are their outcome-based responsibilities. If I want to make more, I know how to do it in my role, and I know how to develop for another role. So you get that right. And then this amount of profit, which was pretty big, going back proportionate to everybody's income. And by the way, we would pay 25% monthly, 75% held for end of year accumulation, and you had to be there at the end of the year to get it. This drove a culture of everybody helping everybody else earn another dollar for the company, create another dollar in cash flow, improve customer experience. So our culture was, it's all about accelerating the value the organization creates. And at any point in time, somebody or some team is going to be kind of on the hot seat that they're limiting our ability to create value more than all the others. We all understood it. It's not personal. When that happens, now more resources surround them to get that balloon back on track with everything else or floating at the right level, and then somebody else drops. So it's this wildly fun game. I call it organizational structure bottleneck game of just running around shoring up how we create value.
Right. Yeah. Well, definitely when you see it right in front of you, you can't get away from it. You can't hide from it. It's like, what are we going to do about it? So I love that. I love that. And where do you feel, Lee, that most business owners get stuck there that does keep them from scaling? You said you were stuck at kind of that 8-10 million for a while. When you talk to other business owners, what do you feel keeps them from getting to that 500 employee size, that 9-figure business?
The three things that I said seem to be universal. I haven't been proven wrong yet when I go work with a client. We worked with hundreds of companies ranging from 4 employees to 40,000 employees. And the alignment challenges are consistent everywhere. And then the decision-making process, they don't even, for the most part, most organizations don't have a standard way of making decisions. So there's thousands of decisions, tons of really small ones that every leader makes throughout the year. But there's a couple critical decisions relative to what that leader, the value that leader is charged with creating that they need to make. So what is a critical decision? And you ask people that question and you don't get a solid answer. I mean, they'll fumble around like they're supposed to know what they're talking about. In the MIND methodology, the most important number in drivers, the top of the organization has one number that does two things. Above all other numbers, it says you're winning or losing the game. And the second thing, and equally, if not more important, it drives the majority of the right behaviors. So they may measure 15, 20 other things, and you should, as long as those measurements can help you make better decisions to improve the company's most important number. And then as you cascade down, if you just have a few employees, it's probably one team and one number. But as you cascade down, HR and marketing and sales and customer service and production, they will all have their most important number that does those two things. And you can eloquently just sort of cascade that all the way to the front line. Doesn't matter how many employees you have. Now, when you ask the question, what is a critical decision? What's the definition of that? Every leader would say anything that has the potential to materially impact my most important number. That's a critical decision. Well, what's your process for making these decisions? And then you can walk through that, how you do research. You don't want paralysis by analysis, et cetera, but be really intentional about how you make critical decisions. And then you get to a place with the mind methodology where every decision and every action is through the lens of improving your team's most important number, and all that accretes to the top of the organization. So where do they get stuck? They're down in the details trying to prove that they're right. I've seen silos in 10-person companies, like, oh my gosh, how did you pull that off? It must have been a very intentional effort to create silos within a 10-person company. But getting alignment on the value we create as an organization, most aren't really there. Even some billion-dollar companies that we start working with, what do you think our most important number is that does these two things? They've never once been aligned on that. And then now how do we make decisions, and why are we making decisions? And then now this culture of accountability, and culture is a bigger thing that we can get into if we have time. I think that's where they get stuck, is they're not focused on improving what's most important, and the alignment, decision, and accountability piece.
Well, culture to me is the thing that I enjoy the most in business. I love it. I love the connectedness. We have an amazing team. In fact, we have a leadership retreat. We're all getting together next week. They're coming here to Mexico. Really looking forward to that. I have a question with your most important number. Are you saying for each department there is one number, just one, not two, not three? Because I'm thinking, okay, marketing, right? So obviously, ultimately, it's your conversion, which is sales, but you've got, number of prospects, number of leads, obviously, ultimately going towards the sales. But you're saying each department just has one that you focus on. Is that?
Well, each department will have one most important number that says above all others are winning or losing, and it drives the majority of the right behaviors. So if I just run with marketing for a minute or two, in a lot of organizations, it would be qualified leads. And then you've got sales, which is closing profitable sales, and there's a number over there. But marketing is going to also measure in some way the quality of the leads, because you want to define what a qualified lead is. It closes X percentage of the time, converts, whatever that is. We're measuring traffic to the website. We're measuring, social, and how we're getting it out there in a number of different ways. So there's tons of things to measure to make better decisions to improve, in this example, the number of qualified leads that you have. And then what would be the drivers, the categories of work that marketing should be really good at to improve the quality and number of qualified leads. And as you start getting into that, so you've got a website, you have social media efforts and how you're getting it out there, you have your brand, and there's like a number of drivers that marketing would pick. And when you think about these drivers, like if you could describe a 10 state for your brand, what would that look like? Like, we can't think of anything better for our brand to be a 10 state. And you list all of those things. Snap your fingers. Wow, that we've achieved it. We can't think of anything better to do here. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate how well you're leveraging your brand to improve your most important number today? And most companies would say maybe a 3 or a 4. We have a long ways to go. Great. Now let's start assigning action items to the team to improve how we leverage our brand to drive, in this example, more qualified leads. And so it's such a simple way of thinking about it. You will measure other things, but it really helps with decision making to measure them. And I can't tell you how many teams, in fact, it's most teams, when we start with the mind methodology, they're measuring things that they're not making any material decisions from. It's just an activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because you get super, super clear on that one point, and then you are reverse engineering that to say, to get to this point, we need to optimize this driver and this driver and this driver. Right. And so,
absolutely. Yeah. And it's optimizing. So we're describing what a 10 state looks like. And we're always thinking like every action, every decision is about improving our most important number. So we never want to make process more important than what is most important. And the way we talk about it in the mind methodology, we're saying the same thing a little bit differently, is, are we leveraging the best way we possibly can this driver to improve our most important number? And if not, Are there some actions we can take to improve how we leverage it? Oh, and by the way, we might have 6 or 8, in some cases I've seen 12 or more drivers. At any point in time, improving 2 or 3 of them will probably create more value over the next quarter or year than all the others combined. So which ones are in focus? So it's just a way to really keep the team hyper focused on accelerating the rate of improvement in their most important number.
Yes. And simplifying. And like you said, it's kind of like that 80-20 rule, figuring out what are going to be the drivers that are going to have the biggest impact. And so that their focus is not so diluted.
Yeah. Or it's not, what can we do? Oh, we can do that. Let's go do that. It's, what do we have available? We're aligned on what we could do to improve. It's most important, but which 1 or 3 or 4 of these things can we really get done and do it well that will most improve our most important number the way we defined it? It says we're winning or losing more than all other numbers, and it's driving the majority of the right behaviors. And that second piece, you'll see that problem almost everywhere in organizations driving the behaviors. My favorite example, 2 of them, which are huge offenders in my view, or opportunities missed, is HR and finance. And in HR, for whatever reason, I don't know if this is culturally in the country or the world, but they always say it's retention or engagement. That's got to be it. And then as you play that stuff out, if retention is our most important number, you just hired me to run HR. We have 150 employees or 1,000 employees. And 3 years later, I have 95% retention. But you know what? 75 or 80% of the people can't perform in their roles the way the roles were designed, what they signed up to do. But I won with my most important numbers. That did not drive all the right behaviors. But
right.
And that might be that's a metric that we want to look at. But a better, most important number there would be the percentage of seats filled with capable people, as defined as here's the role, here's the 2 to 3 max measurable outcome-based responsibilities for that role, and they're capable if they're meeting or beating those. If they're below it, they're not capable.
Yeah.
Now we're driving all the right behaviors. We're recruiting better. We're giving leaders better tools. We're doing better training. All of it. Does that resonate, Allison?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. So that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, the retention is great, but we're looking also at the output and the results from that. So you got to have those A players on your team, or people that are really working to their full capacity, or at least close to it. And so and I think you kind of said this, but I want to just speak to it specifically with the MIND methodology. How are you connecting culture and financial results? Can you give some specific examples? Maybe how you did this in your companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting with foundationally, I believe you create values in an organization, and through the culture, it all comes from the beliefs, the accountability, the practices, and the decisions from which we create value. That is the foundation of culture in our view in the MIND methodology for every organization on the planet. It doesn't matter. Now you take it to the next level and say, and I love your term, variable vision is one of the big blockers to getting there. That was pretty cool when I was reading some of your stuff. So you would have a purpose, a vision, a mission. Maybe you have a set of behaviors or values or leadership traits, but you'll have these alignment tools that you develop as a team. The whole team needs to be part of developing these things. So there's real ownership. This is our stuff. We did it. It wasn't Lee or Allison or some other CEO just giving it to everybody and saying, you will like this. So they develop it. Now, how are you applying these cultural elements to measurably improve the organization? And what I did at the aerospace company, and this is probably way harder than what most companies would do, and you don't have to do it this way, but every 6 months we had a mission, a vision, a quality policy, leadership traits, and behaviors. Every employee, for each one of those, every 6 months, and they do 1 or 2 a week, they would put in one example of how they applied it in their role to measurably improve the organization. And they would even take a shot at the ROI. So how did it improve customer experience, internal or external? And how did it improve cash flow or profitability? And so you're developing everyone, and you'll get a lot of blank stares, in some larger companies, frontline employees that are maybe they're cleaning parts or painting. They've never even thought this way before.
Yeah.
Start the process now, watch the magic a year later. Oh my gosh. Like, for example, we set out one year, I think it was 2012, we wanted to uncover 25% capacity in operations. In the aerospace company, we did everything in-house: machining, grinding, electroplating. We had one of the largest, if not the largest, captive electroplating shop in Arizona. So we're doing all of this stuff. So we wanted to be able to do all this work with 140,000 less hours a year. That way we could grow more profitably. And so we set out one year to do that. We actually uncovered 200,000 hours. That was 100 people we didn't have to hire. We still hired because we were growing, but 100 fewer people we had to hire. And we became more profitable. Bonuses were bigger and everything. And all of those examples of, here's how I'm doing this thing here to save money or save time or improve customer experience so we get more work. That's how we connected it back then. In the MIND methodology, for most organizations, employees, with very few exceptions, only have 3 goals. They have their team's most important number goal and what they're doing to contribute to improve it. They have their role-based goals. So here are these couple of measurable outcome-based responsibilities, and they're, meeting, beating, below, make it really simple, but it's just you're doing it or you're not. And then they have their culture goal. And so during the performance review, we call them performance snapshots, because everybody already knows where they stand and what's expected 100% of the time. So we're just capturing a point in time, and we're looking at, well, how are you applying culture to improve our results, to improve the team's most important number, and the experience for all of us within the organization. And are you a cultural fit? Yes or no? Are you living these alignment tools to improve results for the organization? Do you have some examples of that? Which alignment tools do you live the best, and which ones offer the biggest opportunities for improvement? So you go through this conversation, and including, are you encouraging other employees to live these alignment tools? Mission, vision, values, et cetera. So they only have 3 goals. It's baked into the operating system. We're super intentional about it. This is our purpose. This is why the world's better because of us. This is our vision. It sets our direction no matter what's going on in the world. I love the way you talk about that, Allison. Mission, what do we do every single day to create value for our customers? And if we don't do it, our jobs are in jeopardy. It's not the reason we get up in the morning, but this is really important for everybody getting a paycheck. And then how do we agree to interact with each other? What are the best, I'd say, behaviors and leadership traits of the highest performing folks you ever worked with on their best days? Distill those out, hold everybody accountable to it. What an amazing management tool. So this is about being intentional with culture and how you design it, and making it part of your operating methodology. It can't be a look good, feel good, sound good, really nice looking wallpaper experiment inside the organization. And come up with these examples of where it goes. So I've seen very few organizations that do it that way. It's really easy to do. You just have to go through the work, survey everybody, collect the data, get them involved, and then start working on it. And you get it right when every single time something doesn't go like it should have, you can find one or some combination of the alignment tools that weren't exemplified. Now, what an amazing developmental management tool.
Yeah, that is so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is a 3-day conversation. Culture is so powerful, and yet so many people completely miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I love what you talk about, because you are empowering every single person on the team to see how their role, large or small, impacts the big picture, the ultimate outcome. And that's inspiring, because I think sometimes, a lot of times people work in a silo and they don't really understand the part of the whole of what they try to do their job well, but how does that make a difference in the end result for the customer, consumer, whoever it is that's utilizing the product or service.
Yeah, wouldn't it be really cool if in every organization you asked an employee, whether a leader or a direct employee, how do you create value for the organization? And they had a powerful answer for you. Most employees don't know how they create value. They'll just give you a list. Well, I do this. Okay. But if they said, a leader said, I lead my team to improve our most important number. This is why it is our most important number. This is why it generates or drives the majority of the right behaviors. And every non-supervisory team member says, this is the team I'm on. Here's our most important number. And here's the best work I'm doing to improve that number. That is powerful. Now you've made everybody the CEO of their own role.
Yeah, this is really, really phenomenal. And for us, culture has just been this evolutionary thing. I think because we are so locked into our values and really hiring towards value. And we have a very heart centered culture, but very smart people, that the culture has just evolved to this something that is really a beautiful thing that people are all in. And what I found is the vision very much ties into, I don't know how you feel about that, but what I've seen is that when we can bring vision into every meeting, many conversations with the team, not just at our leadership retreats and things like that, but to the day to day and getting them empowered and excited in everything that we do. It just naturally will pull people, unite people, align people, towards that vision and helping them to see what part of that vision that they own, and
I completely agree. The more we show everybody where we're going and how we're going to get there, and that complete transparency is always been my approach to this philosophically. Now they just make better decisions.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, no silos. They know how they create value. And then you said something there around sort of empowerment. I think it's important that every company has a definition of what it means to be a leader within their organization. And, this isn't leadership traits. Like, what does it mean to be a leader here? And I think, at least from my view and in the mind methodology, the best way to think about that is leaders get results and foster an environment that intrinsically motivates and empowers every employee to create more value over time. That's what it means to be a leader here. Now, what are the traits that really drive that? And let's come up with them together. I believe when you come up with a set of alignment tools, it becomes way more powerful and impactful if you have a stated purpose for how those alignment tools will make the organization measurably better before you even start drafting it. And just philosophically, I believe everything we do as an organization should be done with the intent of making it measurably better, and everything else is a waste of time and resources. So coming up with alignment tools to drive an intentional culture should pass the same test. And that's why I threw values out a long time ago, probably late 90s, and went straight for behaviors. Because it was wallpaper. And I remember asking 10 people back then, well, how are you applying integrity to make us measurably better? And I got 10 crazy answers that told me I was completely wasting our time here. And the wallpaper looked great, though. It was awesome. But we weren't getting results. I said, back up. Why are we even doing this? And so it didn't get much help from my leadership team at the time. We only had 70 employees. And so, the reason we're doing this, I think, is to create an environment where at any point in time, 50% or more of our team members are performing, leading, and behaving as good or better than the top 10% at our strongest, most admired competitors. If we can do that, they'll never touch us. And of course, the leadership team, it just hit them. Like, that totally resonates. I surveyed all 70 employees, 68 responded, told them what we want to do. I said, I need your help. List the observable behaviors of the best performing folks you've ever worked with on their best days. And that distilled out into a set of behaviors that stood the test of time. For example, we said at back then it was Able Engineering. At Able Engineering, high performing team members throughout the organization do what they say they will. They have a personal commitment to the end result. They're fully engaged and participate within the team. They treat company resources as their own. They're respectful, honest, and straightforward. I'll remember these things until I'm not around anymore. I mean, they're in my blood. Like, we worked with it. It was part of our operating methodology every single day. So coming up with that stated purpose or calculation for how doing this thing, like creating a set of alignment tools or a standalone alignment tool like Mission, will make us measurably better. It helps in its design and its application inside the organization. I know this sounds like a lot, but it's really quite easy, and it's way
Hmm.
less confusing for team members.
Yeah, no, I get it. I really think this is so powerful. And I do think behavior, people feel like they have more control over. I can do something about this. I can make better choices that are going to move me towards that number.
Yeah.
So, as you were scaling Able, your company, as you look back, what were your biggest lessons or your biggest breakthroughs?
Yeah, really interesting. So the leadership audit checklist I described was a pretty darn big breakthrough. But if you go to kind of working hard and making sure the customers are having an amazing experience, I mean, I think all great companies have to, at a minimum, be there. And then looking at culture and like, oh my gosh, this is really important, and we can connect it to financial results, and it just feels better for everybody. I mean, the simplest definition of culture I adopted a long time ago was what we agreed to do and how things get done. So let's all agree on what we're doing and how we'll interact with each other. And then the being smart part. So I love the challenge. The more complicated, the better. I always feel like the harder a business is, the bigger opportunities for increased margins. I'm not looking for some easy niche. There really is no such thing, because as soon as it's identified, there's as much competition as the perceived amount of business it's setting there. But I like really hard, and let's go for it. So when I sold the company, we had 40 to 50 engineers, kind of bouncing around, aerospace engineers, electrical, structural, et cetera, designing repairs for the aviation aftermarket. So we would get something that had failed, wore out, whatever it is, and we would make it as good or better than a new part. And they would put it back on the aircraft, a helicopter or a fixed wing aircraft, and fly it. And we often improved it. But when we started out, we would say yes to everybody. At the end of the day, when I sold the business, we had over 10,000 repairs that we developed and thousands of parts we reverse engineered to manufacture, and we did the vast majority of it in house. Had I just focused, and we did better as time went on, but had we just focused on a few things and really went after the global market share on that stuff, we did incredibly well. I still know all these people around the world, and it's been 5-6 years since I've been involved with it. And we were a model for how it could be done, but we would have grown 3 times faster had we had that mindset right out of the gate. And I guess you could condense it into do less better. How come so many companies say we're going to do this, not really do it, and then say, oh, that didn't work, and then they run to the next thing that they're not
Yeah.
really going to do and say that doesn't work. So that may have been the biggest lesson in terms of scaling, but it goes to hard work, the culture piece, and then work smart, constantly do all of it. It comes back to the 3 things I said in the beginning: alignment, decisions, and accountability.
Lee, I love do less better. That is really powerful. It really is. Coming from ADD entrepreneurs that were always trying to herd the cats. Let's pull it all, let's pull you back, because I think that there's a level of impatience. Oh, this isn't working. Let's go on to the next thing, or let's keep adding to it rather than refining and going deeper. So,
Yeah, and I think when they do that, they're just looking for the silver bullet, the magic pill. Like they don't want to dig in and do the hard work, and it's actually fun if you have the right perspective. But the hard work to really refine the basics and get it right, to do less better in the way you intended when you came up with the idea.
mm-hmm. As you were talking about exiting and selling your company, Able, can you talk briefly about, as we're kind of wrapping this up today? This is so good. I could talk to you for 3 full days. Can you talk about the process of selling the company to Textron? What were some of the key considerations you had to take into account? Because you said that it was a good decision for the employees. So it sounds like that you were really considering them as well.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a general set of philosophies as a business owner. Like, I believe this, and that'll help you make decisions and design how you create more value as an organization. And one of my philosophies for a couple of decades, really, almost since I started the company, is we should at any point in time have the company in a position to sell for the highest possible price given where it's at. And so I always thought that way. And we were getting, I mean, serious inquiries. The last 10 years I had the business, I would say weekly. And so, but not really interested. And I think another thing philosophically is in making the organization as valuable as possible at any point in time, because you never know what's going to happen. If somebody comes along with a really good offer, an equally good, if not better option is keeping the business. And I felt that way when I sold it to Textron. I would have been perfectly fine keeping it. And then if we are going to sell it, I think about the 500 employees at the time, starting from the 3 initial employees and all the ones that stayed throughout the years. They got us here. This isn't about just me and money. And unfortunately, that's how most exit. It's like, I want mine and, whatever. They say they care, but their actions say they actually don't. So I started 7 months before I sold it, and I brought all the employees in. Our largest conference room would hold over 300. And I did it in a few groups and said, here's what we're thinking about doing. What do you want to do? And when I started the conversation, about 20% said no way. By the end of it, when we finally agreed to sell, we had 2 employees that were just vehemently against it. All the other ones, for all the reasons, were for it. And if you are going to sell a company, I think the best way to do that is to find a strategic buyer, not a private equity firm that wants to just do things really fast in a condensed time frame and spin it off, 2 or 3 years later. And that's what we did, and so we ended up getting a multiple that was significantly higher than what anybody else in aerospace was getting at the time in the aftermarket space. And at the same time, if and I can't really go into detail of what they're doing, but if Textron, thinking about it at the time, executed on the strategy, which part of it was buying the organization and then leveraging their global channels on the helicopter side and the fixed wing side, it would be like they got a screaming deal because of what it would do to their cash flow within a couple of years. And so it was great for everyone. And I would have been totally happy keeping the company. I think I would still have done better than what they've done with it. But that's okay. And I'm tracking the team members I worked with back then. Some of them are all over the world. They're working in Singapore and all over the United States and other countries. And I'm like, wow, they're really growing and expanding. This is super, super cool. And then when you are negotiating selling the company, and I guess I've had exits from a few million to well into 9 figures now. The other side's job is to pay nothing, and your job is getting to pay 10 times what they should. And so it was funny, I was sitting back and they were really good at convincing my team we weren't worth very much. And they'd run to me, we have to take this. And I'm like, nope. And I remember standing my ground, and I threw out a number initially, which was double what we sold it for, because that's how my math worked out. And they got up and left the room. One of the CEOs of a business unit left, and it looked like all theater to me. It was really entertaining. And they ended up settling where it was, which was unbelievably great, I think, for both parties. But once I stayed on for 17 months, to make sure the transition went well for all 500 employees, that was really important to me. They would have paid something closer to my initial number because their math was the same as mine. And then I also wanted to make sure the transition went well. So I took $4 million off the top and spread it out amongst, I think it was 24 leaders in the organization as a retention bonus. Stay 2 years and you all get to divide this stuff up. And I made 13 other millionaires when I sold it. Some of the team members that had equity. And so another philosophical belief is that if I try to control all of it, I'll end up with way less down the road when I sell something or exposed to way less opportunity than if I appropriately give equity, ownership, bonuses, et cetera, share essentially in the success with team members that are truly earning it. And that's a whole other discussion, because sometimes we give stuff away that we never should have.
Yeah.
But is that helpful? Anything else you want to know?
Yeah. No, I think there's just so many things to consider. And I think when you hear, I've sold 4 of my companies before, and, there's so many pieces to it, but I really love how you considered your employees and their future. And you must feel super proud as you look now to where the company's gone and how a lot of those people are still there and creating a great life for themselves. So
Not only that, they're still there. They're in a whole bunch of other divisions of this conglomerate. But the ones that left to work other places, they're treated like unicorns because of the way we ran the business. So if you want to get the highest price, you better have a really solid leadership team, some bench strength, a provable, amazing way of operating the business that can keep going after the acquisition. But these folks left, and it's so cool. They're taking, senior leadership positions in a number of different companies, and that's the thing that makes me feel the best.
Well, you should. You absolutely should. All right. I have one more question. Besides, I want to know how people can reach you and so forth, and learn more about you and your book. So if you have your book there, you can hold it up for everybody to see. But I wanted to know, because this is where a lot of business owners that I find get stuck for years, decades, and it was probably where you were at that 8-10 million, is that they get stuck in the weeds of their business. They're really choking their own growth, right? They're so afraid to let go. I think that's the biggest thing that the business owners have fear around, is that letting go. What advice do you have for CEOs that need to stop the micromanaging so that they can move to the next level, really moving more into their leadership? What would you
In
say?
all the different businesses that I've started and exited, and all the different clients that I work with, it's always fascinating for me to listen again back to business maxims. You need to be delegating, don't micromanage, and then everything will just happen. Well, there's gurus all over the planet talking about this stuff. Just do that and it'll work. But if they did it, most times everything would crash. Why would it crash? Well, they don't trust that it'll get done if they don't do it, because they didn't take the time to build the leaders and the standard operating practices, essentially the management operating methodology in which this organization creates value or profit or cash flow. They didn't work on that. And so they don't have a system they can trust. I was back working 80 hours a week, some weeks 100 hours. Again, loved it. Soon as I started building the system so the machine, this value creation machine, could do it on its own, now I'm trusting it. I don't even have to worry about these things anymore. They didn't spend the time on that. And then these gurus that tell people, well, just stop micromanaging and delegate and everything will be fine, they're doing them a wild disservice. In fact, I think most of these hit run gurus that are on the speaking circuit couldn't do what they're teaching or espousing from the stage to save themselves, because they're too far disconnected from the real world. That's why I still do this work every single day. My first call with a team was this morning at 7 a.m. Every single day I'm on the front lines with our customers creating value, not hitting the circuit, on doing the speaking stuff and just writing books about it. I love the work. I'm just so passionate about this. Does that resonate? I think that's the challenge.
No, 100%. And I do think that's so true, because you can't just hand it off and then, walk away if you don't have the leadership there to really, steer the ship. Right. So that is cultivating that leadership team. We talk about that a lot, with our clients in Pinnacle. That's really key of building that team managed company. So I'm really happy that you shared that. And I did mention it in your intro, but just, your book looks incredible. And I cannot wait to read it myself. I haven't read it yet, to be honest, but it's called Your Most Important Number. Is there anything that you want to say about the book, since we touched about on the number, but is there anything else you want to share about the book?
Yeah, if you want to understand this methodology, I recommend reading the book. And again, the title is Your Most Important Number. And it really is a simple, and I think simplicity always wins, but simple methodology to create value faster as an organization. And if you want to, if you listen to audiobooks, I actually do 25-minute interviews after every chapter for even more background and insights around the mind methodology. And I'm sitting in my recording studio right now. So I've been playing guitar since I was 5 years old. and I couldn't resist. So I put a guitar solo at the very end of the book, at the very end. So that'll be there. But you can learn a lot more about the book, a lot more about the mind methodology. So you can sign up for our leadership library. There's so much content and ways that we can help you. If you go to the website, themindmethodology.com, and you can access all of this. And again, the website is themindmethodology, all one word, .com.
Awesome. And we'll put it up there in the show notes too, and on the lower thirds on the video version of this. And Lee, thank you so much for being here on the Scale It Method. This has been very eye-opening for me. I'm sure that the listeners absolutely loved it. So
well, thank you. And Allison, I really appreciate the work that you do. Organizations and their leaders need help all over the world. And you're dedicated to it from what I know about you and the research I've done. So thank you. And anybody that starts a business that employs people is a hero of mine, because that's one more person that can contribute to supporting their family. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's super meaningful to me and just so passionate about this work. And it's always exciting when I meet other people that feel the same. So I appreciate it so much. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Scale It Method. If you enjoyed this episode, please write a review and share it with other business owners that you care about. And if you want to build a scalable company that can thrive without you and ready to get the support you need to do it, apply for a complimentary scale session with my lead strategist at Pinnacle Global Network. During that time, they're going to do a deep dive into your business, figure out the gaps that are holding you back, and they're going to actually give you direct solutions right there on the call that you need to overcome those gaps specific to your business. So all you need to do is go to myscalesession.com to apply and schedule a time. You can learn more about us at pinnacleglobalnetwork.com. And thank you. Remember, make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.